DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
Hey everybody, welcome out to the Monday night show, the Monday night hangout show. If you're looking at your screen and you're going, wait a minute, there's one, there's two, where's the good looking one? She's not with us tonight. She's busy, she's working.
She has a real job.
What was that?
She has a real job, not like you and I.
Yeah, no. She's doing her thing tonight. So we do miss Shani. We can't do Shani's Got 5 on It without Shani. She tried. She gave us one of 5 things, and John and I both went, okay, we can count to 1. Maybe we can count to 5, but without Shani, we're not going to try. So tonight, what we are going to do, John came up with this cool idea of tips for the mobile part-time DJ. So I guess I have a little bit of experience with that. So that was kind of an idea that we decided to pass around. So hopefully you guys will learn a few things tonight, maybe from my stupidity. But either way, we do want to thank you for hanging out. And then anything we don't get answered to or don't get to be a part of in the chat room, we will be doing a hangout afterwards. So even though we don't have the 5 on it, we will be doing that following it up. So stick around, ask away in the chat room. Feel free to throw it out. No holds barred tonight.
Well, and we definitely want to have some input from the chat room tonight, whether it's out on Facebook or YouTube, because we do have 5 areas in which we're going to be kind of focusing on as we go through the night. So as we're throwing up an area and you've got something that might fit for that, please share that, because we'll be kind of reading the chat also, because a lot of you won't be able to see the chat. So we're going to have to, if somebody says something on Facebook, we got to read. If so, the YouTube, and YouTube will and everything goes away. So that's our plan for tonight. We got a nice crowd coming in. Awesome.
So you were watching the Facebook chat, correct?
I'll be bouncing between the two. Yeah. I'll make sure that one that I'm covering that one. Actually, okay. I should pull it up on my phone.
If I multitask with more than one, no.
Yeah, I know. I can be confused in many ways, so I'm good with that. Yeah, that's the right one. So that'll load up here in just a second, and we'll be good to go. Awesome. So I went through and again found 5 different areas, and I want to see if there's a. We're going to be talking.
We still got to count to 5.
Yeah, we still did 5, and I wasn't really intent on 5, but that's just what it came out. The areas we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about planning. We're going to talk about marketing, some sales, talking about selection of gear, and then talking about how you balance life and the profession. So where should we start? Anywhere in particular, Dan?
Let's start at the top.
Okay.
And just go down right through. I think that last one's going to be the big one.
It could be.
It's a loaded one. We'll know that much.
Okay. So the first one then we'll start talking about is how, as a part-time DJ, planning events can take a lot of time, and it takes, whether it's meeting, what have you. What are some ideas? And we're going to, and we want you guys to also share in the chat room some ideas and thoughts of ways that you can, save some time and make it so as a part-time DJ, you can be effectively plan your events. What are some things you've done, Dan?
So one of the things that I think is very important, we know that time is of the essence. You're doing your full-time job, you're doing your part-time job with the DJing, and so you really need to kind of spread out, I guess, your planning. If you're sitting down trying to cram, I don't think you're giving it as much time as you should. And so what I will often do is take my schedule, and I meet with the brides and the couples about 2 months in advance. Sometimes a little bit more, but roughly about 2 months in advance. And that gives me a lot of time where I can immediately start working on some rough draft things. I can start putting together, if there's photo booth strips that we need to create, if there's monograms that we need to build up, I can spread that out. And then as we go, it becomes more of a check-in than it does a, hey, by the way, we're a week from your wedding. Here's everything. What do you think? Now, I also kind of say, in some ways, I guess I'm a little bit blessed because while my full-time job does take up a lot of time, it's empty in the summer. Right?
Sure.
I'm the teacher. So I also do the 2 months in advance because as fall has picked up and become insanely bigger than summer ever was for me, I'm now doing my meetings in July and August before I go back to school. So I do kind of have that little bit of extra wiggle room to kind of work with couples and that, but I spread everything out. I feel it works a little bit better if I take half an hour here or half an hour there, rather than sitting down and doing 5 hours at one time.
And I think one thing that if you guys watched Casey tonight with his little wedding MC thing that we were working on, he talked about because he's kind of developed a methodology of how he does things, and he makes introductions. As an example, the father-daughter, he gave an example of how he did that, which was absolutely fabulous. And he's looking for specific information when he has that bride that wants to have that more of a touching personal introduction. He is looking for specific. He's how I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this, and he can put it together. And I think at times I almost kind of like doing things like that, rather than doing the in-depth interview process. I kind of have an idea of, 2 or 3 different ways I could introduce an example. And now I can just find out which is going to be the best to fit, get information, modify it a little bit, and here we go, rather than feel like I'm recreating the wheel each and every time that something comes up. And maybe that's, some people may say, oh, but that's not being creative enough. I'm good with it. And the results, again, you listen to how KC did it, you'd hear him say it, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's it's just fabulous.
Well, I think if you take anything from comedians and think about how they do their show, oftentimes they're writing new material and things like that, and they might try it out, but when they get before a crowd, they tell it like it's the first time that they've ever done it, to get that effect and to kind of react to it. And so I'm not saying we have to have necessarily a single canned show, but taking exactly what you said, if you've got 3 or 4 different ideas and you're inserting the one that is going to match that bride or that groom and their moment, you've now, in essence, shortened what you're doing. I really kind of question the people that do everything from scratch every time. Like, are they really being truly unique at each one, especially if you're doing a bunch of events? Mm-hmm. I find it kind of hard that you would not maybe slip into some of the routines that will get a reaction the way you want. Larry is asking to define the kind of part-time, and I guess what we're going to be kind of looking at tonight for part-time DJ is someone who has a different job. You have a full-time job, in Dan's case, teaching, and to a point, my full-time job is the Disc Jockey News, and then I DJ on weekends. I don't have the luxury to be putting in 25 hours the week of a wedding in producing, prepping, and such all the time. So that's what we're going to look at for tonight. A couple of planning, some tools that you use. One, Dan, I've really gotten to, I'm using an awful lot, is just the simple Google Calendars. And you mentioned setting up appointments and doing that. I'm now to the point where I'm setting up an appointment with someone, and then I get their email so that they're getting reminders of this upcoming appointment, and it's going to remind them, a week out, the day before, an hour before type of thing, because that's been such a valuable tool for not only
me remembering, but I find that on their side that they're like, oh yeah, I got the reminder email from you. That was so fabulous. It had slipped my mind.
Yeah, I definitely would say if you're not utilizing some sort of automation program, whether it be the building stuff with the Google Calendar, whether it even be an email system like where you pre-plan it something to send out for that reminder, I think you're cheating yourself. I really do. There's so many things that can kind of take our mind and take our attention that sometimes you forget. And so many times when I've been in Facebook groups, you hear different things of, oh, I showed up for this, I drove an hour to be at this meeting. I showed up and they didn't show. And then you call them, you're like, oh, I totally forgot, and either A, they can't be there at that moment, or they're still going to be extra half an hour until they can get to wherever you're at. And you go, I've wasted all this time. Perfect opportunity to take advantage of some of those automation. Michael mentioned in the chat room, DJ Intelligence, there's DJ Event Planner. There's other ones like that that have that automation kind of even ramped up beyond just the Google Calendar aspect that really utilizes that help. And definitely, I would also say this is something that I've used for my family side. I know we haven't quite got that, but we'll use it anyway. My wife and I share our calendars in our phone, so that not only do I make sure that I'm putting it in for myself, but I'm making sure that I'm putting it in so she doesn't plan a meeting for her work or for her own personal thing. So that way she knows, okay, I can be home for the kids or vice versa. I don't plan something on a night when she needs me home.
That's one of the areas in which Lori and I need to kind of correlate the two calendars. She's got the refrigerator calendar, and I'm using the Google one. And every once in a while, it's like, "Oh, you didn't know that's going on tonight?" Yeah. So yeah, that's just a little bit planning. With today's couples, I have had situations where, when it comes to music and the struggles of getting music lists back, and a lot of DJs talk about that. In that planning arena, I found with a couple of people who are struggling with their music that they had been making, unbeknownst to me, playlists on Spotify. And the ability to be able to say, hey, if you're making a playlist somewhere for your wedding, whether it's in an email or in a notes on your iPhone or in Spotify, which is quick and easy to do, I think a little flexibility on utilizing whatever their methodology of collecting music requests, is going to save a lot of time, rather than, as you're chasing them down and saying, oh, can you enter those songs in on your event planner here because I need to have them here? Well, sometimes it's just a bigger pain in a Katuski to there, instead of just saying, oh, just send me the link to your playlist.
I guess maybe a plug for an extra company that I ran into at Expo, and I've kind of heard some underlyings as I feel like this is really catching on quick. I'm probably going to do it wrong. Vibo. V-I-B.
Yep, Vibo. They're actually one of the sponsors right below you right now online.
I guess if I scroll down, that I might be able to see
they're right below us right now, probably. Yeah, not they just disappeared. So by the time this comes up, it's going to be a few seconds after that. But yeah, Vibo is definitely something. Did you get a chance to look at that?
I didn't personally. I sat and I talked to the guy for probably about 5-10 minutes, got a lowdown on it. It unfortunately, at the time that it came, it just kind of came at a bad moment for me. August, I'm going into the fall weddings, and I pretty much put anything that I'm looking at on hold, anything that was new, because I knew any new system is going to take a little bit to ramp up. There's the learning curve. There's the entering of the personal data that you want so that it's more fit to you. And for me personally, I was like, let's just hold off. But I got all the information, and I'm planning during my down season, whatever we'll call that. But I'm planning as weddings slow down, I guess is what we'll say, to take advantage of that and look into some of this, because I also feel that while there's automation systems out there, there's constantly going to be new ones, and exactly as you said, ones that maybe will fit the couple a little bit better. I know one of the things that I thought was really nice about Vibo is they have an app.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think that unfortunately one of the downsides for some of the other systems is the presence of an app is not as strong. It either it doesn't exist or it's not a viable use.
Yeah, some of them just aren't. They don't translate over to the cell phone as well. And Vibo definitely does. I just put in the chat room the link for you guys to go check out, because Vibo is one of our sponsors. And if you use the promo code DJNTV, they've actually got a little bit of a discount going on with Vibo. So make sure when you check that out to pop that code in there, so they, first off, will know where you're coming from us, and secondly, is it'll save you a couple of bucks off on Vibo. But yeah, Vibo is a great tool for them to pick out their music and to be able to listen to their music and organize their music for you to get into. You can manage it a little bit. It doesn't take really that long to set up, and the cool thing is that it kind of fits in really well with your DJ event planner. They can do a lot of things there with the planning and doing things with that, names and such, and then the Vibo becomes the part that they have with them, and they can just do all, as they're finding songs and such. So it works. The two work very, very well together.
And I will say this: I had a bride recently. She almost classified herself as a bridezilla. And I purposely have kind of gotten to the point where I'm like, listen, I'm going to do away with that term.
Yeah.
But she even said, she's like, as we got real close to the date, she's like, I'm sorry, I've been such a bridezilla. And it's like, no, you're not. You've been very particular with what you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
But she was constantly sending me texts, emails. She had me friended on Facebook, so I was getting Facebook messages.
Mm-hmm.
And what became a problem as we got close was my own panic that she had sent me something across one of the different platforms.
Oh, yes.
That I missed.
Oh boy. I'm glad, but it's a great thing you brought it up. I have come to that now, and it's like, okay, first time I'm looking at Messenger. Now I went to text messages. Then I went to email. Okay, well, I better search email 2 or 3 different ways, because in case she sent it from his email, or maybe she has a different email. So I search by her email, then I search by her name and his name, and yeah, what a real thing we didn't have to worry about 10 years ago.
But having that automation system, if you got something, and whatever your automation system is, I'm calling it that, but it could be software, it could be somebody mentioned a dry erase board, whatever it is that you're using, make sure you've got something in place. Because I'll be honest, that wedding, I thoroughly enjoyed working with this bride and her husband. It was great getting to know them. But my own anxiety the week of going, did I miss something?
Oh yeah.
Like, did she, because she even called me once or twice, and I'm like, and after she did, I'm like, listen, I need you to drop this in a text message or something, so I have it written so I can look back on it.
Yep. Good thoughts. And that's a great tip right there, is that when you are on phone messages, especially if you can't be taking notes, don't be afraid to say, could you please just kind of jot down a couple of notes of what we're talking about? You caught me at a bad time. And I've had that where they've called me and I've been, on the road, or I've been away from the office, and it's like, I have some time to talk, but I can't take notes. So anything we talk about, if you could, oh yeah, no problem, I can do that. And it's worked well, but just making sure you don't lose information. That's the scariest thing, I think, with weddings anymore. Let's keep moving along here. Let's look at some things now. Now, marketing as a part-time, generally single op, means that we don't have the budget and we don't have the time to be doing things. And specifically, some of the things that I would be talking about with time is the going and visiting venues, and the going and knocking on doors and making appointments to come in and see and walk through spaces and do different things. When I was doing this full time in the 90s and early 2000s, this was a couple of times a month thing. We were always doing some of this to go and go to the venues, because generally we had events coming up, so we could go under the pretense that, hey, we've got Sarah's wedding coming up, and I wanted to stop in and talk to you a little bit about a couple of things Sarah was talking about. And they're like, oh yeah, 4:00 Friday? Great, we'll see you then. I don't have the time to do that anymore myself. So there's going to be things that, when it comes to connecting and marketing and different things, that as a part-time we can't do. Dan, any thoughts when you're trying to market and get your name out there as a part-time DJ? What are some of the things that you have found that you felt have been worthwhile doing?
Well, as you kind of mentioned, the knocking on the doors just becomes a problem. Even if you have some flexibility in your schedule, what I found is a lot of our wedding managers, I guess we'll say, the venue managers, they don't work till 5. They definitely don't work in the evening. So if you have a normal, day job, you're not meeting up. And what I found is my lunchtime oftentimes was their lunchtime, so I couldn't even make phone calls to them during that time. So first off, email. Email is going to be your biggest friend. Don't be afraid to utilize it, and do those contacts, some of those conversations that you're going to have. Do it via email, and just kind of one of those things saying, hey, I just wanted to reach out to you. I know your schedule's busy, so I just want to toss some ideas back and forth with you. Here's what I was thinking. Almost to the point of having that conversation, not almost to the point, but having that conversation you were going to have face to face. Now you're doing it in email. If you don't make it sound like I'm doing this because I'm so busy that I can't reach out to you, but doing it purely in the standpoint of I'm just having a conversation. Mm-hmm. Alan Berg, and this is kind of a flip. He talks about when you're booking with couples and stuff like that. Don't be afraid to do the stuff that you used to do on phone via email.
Yes.
A lot of the couples are more comfortable with email.
Oh, for sure.
I've noticed that a lot of your wedding vendors and that, and I know we keep talking weddings, but a lot of your vendors have started to get more comfortable, if they're not already, with having those conversations via email. So if you do it, they don't really think anything of it. They would much rather have that conversation with you than for you to show up and not have something. I worked with a photographer this past weekend, and I reached out to her earlier in the week to say, hey, just want to make sure we're all on the same page for Saturday. I never heard back from her. Saturday I ran into her and she's like, listen, things were so crazy I didn't even get a chance to email you back. But she's like, thank you, because you are the only DJ that I've worked with who does that. And it was just like, I'm the only one.
Yeah. And
reaches out to you. Like, seriously, like, what are you guys thinking? So if you're not reaching out to your vendors, like that's one of the lines on my planning form of, who is it and what information are you using to contact them? And to be honest with you, usually if it's a phone number they give me, I Google the company so that I can either Facebook them or email them or something like it, because I know my time's not going to match up with theirs.
And, I think another, I want to, you mentioned that, finding that information, whether it's that email, because let's face it, how many times if you're busy in your day, would you rather take a phone call or would you rather answer an email when you're sitting down and you're not interrupting part of life? And I think everyone's that way, whether you're a venue manager or you're a bride and groom, phone calls, yes, we all will love them. But, as far as that, we want to have that communication, but most people are like inconvenienced by it. You get them like, okay, you have 30 seconds, go, kind of a thing. And that's the way it feels. Whereas that email, she didn't reply. If you would have called and she would that week of, and she'd have probably been like totally stressed out and wouldn't have given you the time of day, probably wouldn't remember the call beyond that you called. Well, with the email there, she was able to look at it. Okay, I'm busy. I'll get back to it. She probably looked at it 3 times that week. Too busy to really get back to you, but she at least could see it and knew you cared and such. And weren't stealing some of her time from her focus in other places. And I think that's something where email becomes so valuable. And I think you can add to that. You mentioned looking him up on Facebook. Messenger has been such a great tool to use for that communication also. I mean, far ahead of even text messaging, because text messaging is all of a sudden, somebody text messaged me, that kind of a thing. We do this all the time, and it's interrupting the life. And now I don't want to be that person that's interrupting their life. So Messenger, I can use email. And I think between the two, that's going to get you a long way with the younger venue captains and such that are working at these establishments. Now, how do you get, if you want to communicate with them, basically the reason we're talking venue captains in this part of it is because their referrals to upcoming brides and grooms are gold. That's why we want to be on their good side. We communicate with them via email. We get to know them a little bit, what have you. They see that we are the only DJ that's doing it. The final part of this is that every venue wants to look like their venue was fun, beautiful, good for the day. And this is where we can take our nice little cell phones, and if you know how, spend some time learning how to take pictures with this or short video clips, and use that to take promo that you're going to be using on your social media channel. And you tag them. You share it on their page if it's something worthwhile. And it's not so much as hey, here's DJ John Young, who's having a great time at this party and happens to be here. It's like, check out the beautiful room at the Hyatt. The Hyatt puts on an incredible display for wedding couples, and the couples know that they're loved when they are doing their whatever. But it's putting it from the perspective of the venue or the perspective of couples. And, oh, by the way, this picture is coming from DJ John Young. Those things go a long way.
I have found, I wasn't doing much with Instagram. I've had Instagram forever and a day, and I would like post like once a year. And this year, I had a photographer friend of mine who she really encouraged me to be a little bit more purposeful in utilizing it. And what I found is, obviously, yes, I'm finding couples that are actually finding me because they're looking at their venue and seeing those pictures. But just recently, I had from this past weekend, actually, it was the venue captain who reached out to me, started following my page because she saw that picture. She saw that exact picture you talked about. It was a panorama. Well, okay, so in Instagram terms, it was like not much of it, but it was that picture that I put up, making their venue look amazing, and she was happy. I mean, she was very, very happy, and before she left, and then to see that, it just helps. So definitely. Michael, I think it was Michael.
Yeah, Michael mentioned that. Welcome without having a gig there.
Yeah. So absolutely. So first off, he's talking about going face to face. So if you have the time to go face to face, obviously, and we can do that, you can. I probably would not just show up.
Yes. Good point. Yes.
Without
keep going.
Without some sort of, if you're showing up blind and you don't have an appointment, I would bring something. And of course this goes into money and budget and all that kind of stuff, but I would bring something as a, hey, I just want to say hi. I would love a chance to talk with you when you have an opportunity. Enjoy this on me. Here's my information. Please let me know when we can sit down and chat. That way it's been a welcome inviting, and you're not trying to get an appointment with them at that second. Or, when would be a good opportunity for me to come back and talk? Probably would be a little bit better, because if you kind of leave it cold, they may never call you. But you're not trying to talk with them when you show up. If you just blindly show up, they're probably not going to take the time, even if they haven't.
See, and I would do it just a touch bit different on that situation. Again, calling ahead and finding out who the person is and saying, "Hey, Sherry, this is John Young, and I've had some couples who have been asking about my services, and I was wondering if I could come up and you could kind of walk me through how you guys do weddings at your event. And whenever you've got a half an hour, I just love to come up there and have you kind of walk me through, so that way when I'm talking to the brides, that we can all be on the same page and do that." And would you mind if I, take pictures? And it's like, I'd love to, in an ideal world, Sherry, I'd love to be able to come in while the room is kind of set up so I can, really visualize things and such. I found that had worked really well, because they would have me come in on a Friday. I'm not doing anything on a Friday. Some other DJs DJing that night, but they would have the room set, and I could come in there and take some pictures and shoot some video of what the room looked like. It worked really well. You mentioned the bringing a little gift, and that's an interesting one, because that's what I used to do. Recently, Wedding MBA, they did a survey of venue managers, and they found out that most of the venue managers are now kind of getting turned off because other vendors are bringing these little gifts. They're bringing in donuts. They're bringing in this and that, and they're like, just keep your stuff. We don't want it. Come in, and if you're going to come in, make an appointment at a time that it works for me. Don't just drop in, and don't waste my time. Get in, get your information that you need, and then get out. So
okay, so ignore everything I said and just pay attention to what John said.
Well, I think there's going to be opportunities, or there's times for that. I think you're going to have some larger venue managers that probably wouldn't like that. You might have a small mom and pop operation that would just be kind of tickled for you to be bringing in, a local jam from someone who, a farmer who makes this really cool, hey, here's this little strawberry jam pack that I just thought you guys might like that, and I just wanted to drop that off here as we were talking and such, because it's really cool, and I thought it might be something you guys would enjoy. Whatever. I think everyone's going to have a little bit different take on that, but I know when I'm working at the Holiday Inn, where they can do 3 weddings a night up there, they're so swamped and crazy that they would be the ones who'd be like, yeah, no, I don't have interest in such a thing. So
at Expo, Rob Peters talked about if you're sending them something, like trying to get something to open, the envelope idea, they're probably going to pass on, or they're going to take and toss aside. And he talked about, he actually used foam feet, like little foam feet.
Okay.
Almost like rabbit's foot type of size, right? And on it says, It was something to the effect of wanting to get my foot in the door with you. And it was something that was different. It wasn't the typical gift. It was a stress ball type of foam. And he said that, I forget how many they ended up sending out, but it got him so many appointments rather with these venues, just because it was something that was different.
Yeah.
It was, it was something that caught their eye, and it worked for them. So, in fact, so much to the point that everybody was asking him where he got the foam.
Yeah, from. And I think that unusual thing is kind of the standout and just be different. And that's something when we talk about bridal shows here in a few weeks, that's going to be part of that whole process, is some different ideas of how to stand out in that. So, okay, let's continue on. We're up to number 3, which is talking about sales and how we can basically make our sales, in a full-time situation, where you have an office, the bride comes in and they'll talk and they'll go through things and you may have multiple meetings before. You may be meeting with the whole family to whatever. As a part-time DJ, I don't have that kind of time. Dan, what have you found that has worked to help you make those sales but not be super time-consuming?
So I've utilized kind of the recent trend among our couples, which is they're not really big at sitting down and talking with you face to face. So what I've done is I will do a lot of my conversations via email and have those same conversations that I would have had face to face, but in email form. This is a double-edged sword, all right? Because what I've been able to do is there's probably, I think of my weddings, there was 4 that I booked this year that I never met with them face to face. Everything was done via email, from the initial conversations to answering the questions that they had to asking them questions. Everything was done through email, and I ended up getting it or getting those events. And so probably spent maybe similar amount of time as I would have in a face-to-face meeting, but it was, again, spread out. It was email, sometimes at 10, 11 o'clock at night, sometimes first thing in the morning before I went to work. Whatever time worked for me, and then whatever time obviously worked for them, they were responding back. Reason why I say double-edged sword, there's 2 events where it wasn't until we got into that planning meeting, the 2 months out that I mentioned, where I started to learn a few things about them, and it almost came back to bite me. Sure. Like there was one couple in particular. I've got their event coming up next month, and the bride looked at me and she goes, "Yeah, we want all explicit songs, and we want the normal versions." And I just looked at her and I went, "This is nothing we talked about. Like, this didn't come up in our conversation." And I suddenly started to have kind of an uneasy feeling because, one, they also in that conversation told me about all the longevity couples that were going to be there, people that had been married 30, 40 years and probably would not be appreciative of what they were giving me, as well as the fact that this venue is an open air area and there's a shopping mall that would very easily be able to hear the music that I was playing from it. And in my head, I'm just going, this has red flags all over the place. Yeah. So utilizing that email is a good thing, but you've got to make sure that you are having those full on conversations that you would have, so that you don't have those big question marks later on.
Couples that I've been working with this past year, getting them in a face-to-face meeting somewhere time has been, I think I can honestly say it has been impossible this year. I will be actually having my first face-to-face meeting with a couple next Friday. Every other couple that I have met with or dealt with when it came to sales, pre and even planning, has been via Zoom, what we're using tonight. Because I think, what I've heard from couples, and I know Rich, you just mentioned that, they like to make face-to-face yet in the Midwest. I'm running into couples who are like, can we just do video chat? Because if we have to drive or you have to drive, we're wasting, each one of us are wasting between a half an hour and an hour to get there. And then we have to sit down and we're talking and it's going to be noisier. And it's like, if we could just do a video chat, we have 2 minutes to set it up. We do an hour and we're done. And that, I think that with the generation we have coming up who are comfortable in front of their cell phones and different things, I feel that this is a trend. Second, to add to this is when they've been asking questions via Messenger, I've tried this on 3 different brides this fall, is instead of replying to them, it was click, shoot a 15-second video. Hey, I just wanted to just do this because it's going to be a lot quicker than me typing all this. If we do this and it's going to look like this, and I've had, oh my gosh, that was so nice. So
you haven't found any issue, because there was the adage of, you don't want videos to play on your website because when they open it, it's not going to be a good time for them to watch that video or to hear that video. Do you run any? I
haven't, but I've
pushback?
also done it in the evening. I mean, I've shot, I think 2 of them where I was sitting right here getting the show ready to go for the night, and it came through, and it's like, ooh, let's just go click and say, hey, because, when I'm in here, and I think I went like this so I could get this angle back, so they could see my record, the albums and such. But it was, the idea is I wanted to show some life, and really everybody plays music, everybody has sound system, everybody has light show. What makes me different is me. And to be able to show that on camera, that's what I wanted to do. And that was my goal. Obviously, some people don't come across well on camera. Some people, for whatever reason, it wouldn't be a good idea. But if a person can do that, and you're able to show a little of that personality in these 10 to 15 second videos, and again, they were in the evening. Now, during the day, I probably would go complete text message back and forth, unless I knew that they weren't at work. I mean, if I'm getting bing and bing and bing and bing, I'm probably going to make an assumption that they're not at work. And if I need to explain something more in depth, I would do that. I remember a few years back, a DJ was like, yeah, well, I do a custom video and I put it up on YouTube and send in the link. And it's like, oh, that's a lot of hassle. Well, today with Messenger, especially if I'm messaging back and forth, I can go do this and send it off, and they have it, and they can talk or look or think. And then the one particular gal, she replied back with an audio clip. She did recording. She didn't do a video. And she's like, hey, John, thank you so much. That was so great. That's exactly what I wanted to know. And I just loved the idea. And part of the probably reason why she loved the idea is because she could hear my passion and emotion of what I was selling her on. And it was an upgrade, actually, we were talking about. And she could get that much more than she could in text. So I think it definitely something to utilize the tools, whether it's FaceTime or Zoom or Skype, sending little quick video clips via messaging, and again, communicating with them in the method that they want to communicate with today: email, messaging, text message.
By the way, that was gold right there that you just laid out. If anybody missed that, go back and watch.
Yeah, rewind.
No, I think there was also one key that you really want to hone in on, and that's quick snippets. Don't go into a 3-minute conversation with your phone that you then try and send to them via Messenger. It's got to be as short, almost to the idea of what you would have typed in a quick reply, but in a quick video.
And again, showing a little life. Don't be like yeah, we were talking about that first dance, and I think the song that you chose for your first dance is really going to be good, and everyone's going to be excited about it. No. It's like, whoa, the song you guys picked out for your first dance, I think is going to be incredibly awesome. And people are just going to be, oh, I love that dance. Show some emotion. Be lively. Absolutely. They're not paying you to be a bump on a log. Okay. Continuing on, we are up to number 4. And this is an area which I know, Dan, you have struggled with as someone who is working full time with the teaching, is making informed decisions on buying gear. That you like to go and touch and feel and look at things, and you've mentioned this in either on shows, or you've mentioned this in private, that it's tough for you to be able to go to shows and do things like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Like, I think what has definitely helped has been a lot of the reviews that you've done, that MJ has done, and some of the other ones that have been put out when you hear about a new product coming on the line. Because first off, you want to make that informed decision. And I think one of the things that I also struggle with is I have one local store. I got another one that basically is instruments. So every once in a while, they might carry some PA type of system. But I've got basically the one in store, and they've got a DJ section. And it is what it is. But when I go in there, there's nobody to really kind of give me information, because everybody that's in there is very strong on guitars and drums. And so they've got this. It's like, okay. But yeah, going to shows and being able to take part of just that feel, just the idea of seeing it. I'm still, and maybe this is me being old school in some aspects, but I'm still one of those guys who likes to be able to touch something, to feel something, to look at something in person before I decide that I'm going to drop a couple $100s on it or more, just because I want that. Like, it drives me nuts when I go to my local store, and even if it's something that's not DJ related, and I go, they don't have it here. Oh, but we can order for you online. That's great. I have no idea if that's what I really want. I want to know that this is the size of it, not this. Whatever happens to be the case. So, finding time to get to the shows. If you don't have that available to you, if you can't take a vacation day or 2 or 12 or whatever you need to do to get to the shows, definitely referring to the reviews that are out there, and reading through the bias. I mean, unfortunately, everybody's going to have a personal bias. Some companies will have obviously a bigger bias. But the third-party reviewers are really where you want to spend your time digging into that equipment. And
I think one area and I know you've done this because you've watched the video that either MJ and I have talked about, and then when we've gotten together on video later, you're like, so you're asking questions. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably the key part I want people to take from this is that MJ does videos, I do videos, we all do gear videos. And sometimes it's worth the time to just go and ask a question and say, hey, John, I noticed you use the RCF and you use the Evolve. What's your take? Because there's some things that we will talk about more in depth off camera than we will on camera. Not because one is bad or one is good or what have you in that way, but there's things that I would say to you in a chat or say to you via phone that if you didn't understand it, I could clarify it. There's things I don't want to put in video because if I say it and if it's not understood properly, it's going to be misconstrued and it's going to be a negative thing on what either I reported or on the whatever brand I'm looking at. So I'm trying to be somewhat careful on that and not say things that are going to be taken too much out of context. But if we're talking and I say that that these speakers are and they can take the paint off the walls. Well, maybe Dan views that as, oh really? Wow, I don't want that kind of thing. That the sound that harsh that they'll be taking the paint off. No, I don't mean it that they're harsh and they take them off. I mean that they're that full and powerful that they can do that. Oh, I didn't get that. Whereas if I said that in my video and you were thinking, oh, those highs must be just peeling the paint off the walls. I don't want that. Just as an example. So communicating with those people who are doing reviews. Most of us don't have a problem if you message us and you're not expecting a reply immediately because sometimes those don't get replied to until later in the day. Even just drop in the comments on YouTube. Exactly.
Especially if that's where you're finding the reviews or the videos. And I would also say it, and not to knock our DJNTV, but I would make sure that you are checking out a couple reviews to get that extra person's opinion, because there have been things that I've watched in one review and kind of went and then I watch in somebody else's review and they pick up on an element of the product that the first person either missed, or to be honest with you, unless you're doing an hour-long review, sometimes you just don't have time to go into detail of everything.
Good, very good point. Very good point in both situations.
So having those extra opinions definitely is helpful.
Because as an example, the Mackie Thumps, then they came out. What they gave me for talking points did not include one really cool point that I found out later when they finally updated their website. And it's like, oh, that would have been a great thing to talk about back then, but it wasn't there. So now someone who comes and does a review after those will be able to talk about that particular point. And or there might be a software update or something that, so yeah, good, very good points there. Okay, so let's continue. Let's get to the last one. Our last component is how do we balance life and being a DJ? We've got the main job, our full-time job during the week. We'll call it the 40-hour work week. Then we have our DJ business and we have a family. How do you juggle all those things?
It's probably, if anything, that's probably my biggest job, if you will. When you have a family, when you have these commitments, unfortunately something gets sacrificed. There's no way around it. Even if you don't have DJing as a job, and your full-time job often goes into weekends or something like that, you're going to be sacrificing sacrificing some things. What I've done to try and alleviate that as best as possible, we are very fortunate, those of us that are part-time, if you're doing this the right way, I should say, your full-time job can be what you're living off of, and your DJ job becomes supplemental.
Yep.
Gives you a chance to have maybe the better life. I would not recommend anybody who's doing both to then say, okay, now let's just say 2 jobs together, my annual income is $60,000. My full time is say 40, and say their one's 20. Right,
easy numbers,
here.
yeah.
I would not recommend anybody live at the $60,000 range. My experience, I would live at where your full-time job puts you, and then I would take that others and use it for whatever you're going to use it for. The splurge for a vacation, the improvements to the house, the rainy day fund should something happen out of your control. Because what that then frees you up to do is go, I know this time of year, every year, there is this event, this festival that my family would love to go to and experience. So you know what? I'm not going to take a weekend. I'm not going to take an event that day. You have the flexibility to say no. And you really kind of need to learn to say no. It's hard. And I know some of the people are going, well, I live off of both those incomes and I need to. And when you get into money management, there's some things that maybe could be worked out with that. What I do a lot of times to help so that I'm not taking away from family time is I will stay up later at night. Once my wife and my kids are in bed, that's when I sit down with my contracts. That's when I sit down with my planners, and I try and do as much as I can in the evening, in the late evening, after they're in bed, so that I'm not going, my kids aren't used to seeing the computer in front of my face the entire time. That's not always a luxury, but I will say this, my wife has not been afraid to call me out on it. Of, listen, we're at the park, put your phone away, get back to them this afternoon. You're going to have time later when the kids are napping or when they're doing something. She will survive not talking to her, the bride, for a few minutes. And if she's not, do you really want that as a client? That my wife has no problem throwing that kind of stuff at me. Yeah. But I would also say this is where that you need to have a supportive family.
Yeah.
Because they've got to be understanding that you're going to be gone on the weekend. And if you book an event a year in advance and then a family wedding comes up and they decide to do it the same weekend, that you're not going to be there. And that comes with part of the job. That was something my wife and I really struggled with for the longest time. And we have family that's in law enforcement and family that's in fire, and they're working weekends.
Yeah.
And I said, you don't view that as a problem. I realize I'm not saving lives, but I've made a commitment just the same. Mm-hmm. So it becomes one of those things that with that support, it now becomes a good thing. It becomes a strong support. I keep saying supportive support, but it becomes that leg that you can help stand on, because now you're not turning your back for those other times when you've made those evening commitments to be together, when you've taken off a weekend here or there so that you can be there for an event that the family's going to want you to be at. When you're gone on the other ones, it's a little bit more understanding. I don't know if that was exactly the direction we were going,
but that's good though. I mean, you're sharing a lot of deep stuff there, and this is the scenario in which I personally struggle. And you mentioned, of course, how your wife will kind of get after you a little bit when you're on the phone during family time. Well, I've had that happen any number of times, and truthfully, when Lori's pointed that out, it made me feel about this high, and it wasn't anything against her. It was like, what am I doing? The kids are only, this and doing this and doing that. And all of a sudden my phone buzzes in my pocket. And instead of just, either ignoring it or not having it in my pocket and still playing catch with the kids, it's like, what message am I sending to the kids at that exact moment? Now, because of what I do and doing video and such in the evenings, that's why in the summer I tried to get away off and on. But this is the time, before the live shows go on, I'm spending time with the kids and made supper and was messing around there a little bit. But a lot of evenings I'm not around. Lori has to put the kids together or to bed and such. So it's a real struggle to be able to balance that family life with what we do. And I don't have it answered. I truthfully don't. I'm the guy who puts way too many hours in and should be doing more with the family like that. So when I see times, Dan, where you're with the kids and they were running, you guys were running that little marathon or doing some things like that. It's like, that's gold. And there's a part of me that's envious of that because I haven't been able to figure out how to do that consistently enough. So it's a good thing. I'm glad you were able to work on some of that and have that in your life that way.
I think it's constantly a struggle. I know for me it is. And it was funny. A few years ago, I had a conversation where the gentleman I was talking with, he was a full-time, and we started talking pricing. And we weren't talking like, oh, I charge this and I charge that, but we were talking about the concept of pricing. And he said, as a part-timer, you should be charging more than the full-timer.
Yes.
Because not that you have the overhead or whatever that might cause that, but rather you're taking away from something that is valuable. You're taking away from family time because you've also got your full-time job that you can't say, well, I've got during the week where I'm with them. You're already doing your regular job with that. So then it comes to the weekend and now you're gone for that. So how much is your time worth because of that? And that just, when Steve said that to me, it just hit me like hit me like a ton of bricks. One, because I also realized I'm taking that time. But in the same respect, it's like, oh yeah. I love DJing. I absolutely love it. I love the joys. I love the highs and everything else. And it's hard. It's very hard to balance it. And I think anybody who says that it's not, you either have somebody who's extremely understanding or you just haven't run into those difficult moments yet.
Yeah.
What I would encourage also is reach out. If you haven't, reach out to me. I don't care. Reach out to a support system of DJs. And don't turn it into a gripe fest, but turn it into a way to help each other kind of get through some of those moments and each other's sounding board. Hey, I was thinking about taking this weekend off, but I'm not really sure if it's a good idea. First off, yeah, it's a good idea. You'll survive. You will survive. One less event is not going to suddenly put you in the poorhouse. If it is, then learn a way to charge more so that you can take a weekend off and you still made the same amount of money.
Yep.
Sorry, that was a digressive moment.
It's got a couple of things in the chat board. David asked how many gigs per month. We're talking part-time DJ. In my personal, and we can talk personally here. My goal is about 2, maybe 3 events a month. I don't want to work any more than that. In the summertime, if I can be down to 1 event, I would prefer it. This summer it was 2 events, except for the last about 5 weeks. I had from early my first 2 events in August, and then I've been off until the end of 6 weeks actually, until the end of September here, and then we're boom, 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 boom with homecomings. I don't care to be out more than that because that time, as Dan was talking about, that weekend time, a Saturday is incredibly valuable. Just to get the kids together and pop up a huge batch of popcorn and watch a movie together. And then we can talk about it the next few days and kind of laugh about it. And there's the little inside jokes about, way the brothers and such are acting goofy that's related to those moments are so valuable to me that movie is worth way over $1,000 to me. Way over that $1,000 gig that I could take to go and do a small party here or there. So how many times for me, 2 or 3 times a month is max. 2 would probably be ideal for my situation.
I would say that unless I've got something planned, I take every weekend that I can. I go from May to about the end of October. I have natural holes in my schedule that fall in July and August because either A, I purposely have set those Saturdays aside, or because July and August tend to be light here. It's not uncommon for me to have one in July and didn't get the others, didn't even get inquiries for the others. So I end up, as a result, taking probably in some ways more than I should. I look at it more of how many for the year, and on a typical year, I do 15 to 20 weddings.
Sure,
and more like that. So if you look at how it spreads out, it's a little bit different. But I also look at, when I'm talking about these busy months, my fall gets busy where I'm doing the events, but I've done the planning and stuff when I had that more free time in the summer, where I can do those, those weeknight movies. My kids have off. My wife is a teacher also. So I'm very blessed in that aspect that we all kind of work the same regular job schedule.
And that definitely is a nice little bonus. There was one more thing I wanted to address before we wrapped up here. I want to find it. DJ Rez mentioned it, and I wanted to find it again. Just excuse me, Rez. My DJ money is fun money. And I at one time would have agreed with you on that was kind of that way. As I've gotten older here, I view that basically I'm almost viewing the DJ money, the money I make DJing, is more, I treat it more like it's blood money. That basically it has come at such a high cost in time that I would view it more like it cost me, hide, skin, blood, whatever you want to look at it, that it took something from me to do that. Partially because of time away from family. Partially, this is a whole other issue for another day, is I know that I've had hearing damage from years of playing loud music. And I know that every time I go out there and I'm playing in a wedding and I'm not wearing my ears, my inserts, it's doing more damage to my hearing. And it's like, that's just, it's kind of like watching someone smoke and it's just ticking minutes off their life. I almost see when I'm DJing that it's ticking minutes off my hearing, and it's taking time away from my family. And if I'm doing something and I'm feeling I'm being fairly compensated for it, I appreciate that money much more than saying, this is fun money, and let's just go blow it on whatever. Those days are over, because now it's like that money, I want to put it towards something that is going to have meaning within our family. Obviously covering business expenses and doing things like that, but that's, the things that will hopefully be able to invest in memories with the family at a later date. So not to go down, to be a bummer on that one, but just a perspective of someone who's at 50 compared to 30. 30, I would have been like, this is great, man. This is my party money. I'm going to put this in a can and take it to Vegas with me. That was that thought and idea at that time. So
I think, and also just the idea of, like I mentioned, saving for the rainy day, improvements on your house, things that you want to do, but it feels like you never have the time to do or the money to do. If you set this aside for that, some things can happen a little bit quicker than they would have maybe otherwise. Mm-hmm. Especially if you look at it where I can blow it. And maybe that's not what Rez was meaning as far as, fun money, but still in the idea, it's that extra income. You're not relying on it. You can have that.
Is my mic not picking up? It looks like it is.
I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
I can hear what Randy's saying. I did have to turn you up a little bit.
Oh, I don't know. I thought it was just as wide open as usual. Unless maybe on the keyboard maybe
we're blaming Randy because he's been playing loud music too much.
Yes, that's what he means. Yes, thank you. The hard of hearing, the hearing damage. Thank you, Randy, for making me. I didn't catch that. Sorry. Okay. Well, Dan, thank you. Good chat. Good discussion. And
we went deep a little bit tonight.
We did. We filled up an hour. Oops. So
this is supposed to be a half an hour show. So those of you who got the hour, you got double your money's worth.
You got double your money's worth. And I think we're going to wrap things up because we both have family things to do tonight and such. So we'll get back to the live hangout next week when Shane's back with us and do that after after we do our half hour on the 5, Shaney's 5 on it. So thank you guys for being with us. We had a great crowd tonight, good engagement in the chat room, except for that one person that just got banned from our channel. I don't know if you saw that, Dan, but there's sometimes.
I saw the redacted. I didn't see the original comment, but I didn't
see the original comment between the icon and their name. You're not going to see them back unless they change their name. So anyway, thank you guys for being with us, and we will be back. Let's see, tomorrow we've got Tuesday Tip, and then Ben Stowe. We're going to talk about ringing out a room tomorrow night with Ben Stowe. So that should be kind of an interesting discussion because I've heard it used, and I don't know much about it. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow night, and then Brian and I will be back and talking shop tomorrow evening. So everyone, have yourself a good night. We'll catch you later. Bye-bye.